Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Jones. I am the founder of the Calm Charm. And I'm doing a little show today for Spiritual Psychics TV, just around anxiety, panic attacks, and how to deal with them, basically. If you can just share this live stream, if you get the opportunity, that'd be great. And obviously, you can see my page as well, which is at the Calm Charm. I am on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm also on Twitter as well. So yeah, give us a like and a follow. In today's show, I'd like to just cover just the differences between anxiety and panic, and the difference between depression, what the symptoms are, what's normal and what's not, because I think you'll be very surprised. What I actually do, as well as a little bit more information around the Calm Charm and how it works. And then I'll be open for any questions that anyone has. So yeah, there we go. I'll get started. Um, so typically, the statistics say that there is 1 in 4 people that will have a mental health issue. Um, and that's just during a typical year. So if you think about this year in particular, there's definitely going to be more than 1 in 4. You can see it. I've seen it in the last couple of months. Everything's kind of just ramped up. There is a very distinct difference between depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. So depression is generally categorized as one illness. Good afternoon, Wendy. Is categorized as one illness. So it comes under one branch, basically. There is a lot of, hi Stacey, there's a lot of symptoms within depression, but it is classed as one kind of illness, as it were. Oh, hi Leanne. So anxiety, however, is actually an umbrella term. So it involves an awful lot of different things. Hi Angelina, lovely to see you. It includes phobias, it includes stress, it also includes panic disorders within that. So anxiety is very much an umbrella kind of term, whereas depression is classed as one illness, although obviously I've had depression as well, so I know how it feels, and it does feel like many more than just one. Um, so that's anxiety versus depression. Now, when you have anxiety versus panic attack, because you'll have a lot of people that will say, I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm having a panic attack, and they can kind of, the terms can merge into one. They're very different, believe it or not. So anxiety is a very kind of slow progression. It's, you can have everyday anxiety, which we actually need. We need to have anxiety around certain things because that's what helps to keep us safe. It's just when anxiety goes a little bit too far, that it can cause an issue. So panic is more kind of out of the blue. For anyone that has a panic attack, or has had one or suffers with them, you'll know that sometimes it just comes on without any kind of warning. There's nothing. 1 minute you're fine, the next minute you're up the wall. I myself, I've had anxiety and panic for just over 10 years now. Mine actually is around a health anxiety, and also a little bit of social anxiety as well. So again, within anxiety, you get lots of different kind of offshoots to it. It's very complex. So mine started just over 10 years ago, with my brother who was terminally ill. He ended up passing away in 2010. But part of his illness was, it was like a breaking down of his body. So a lot of my health anxiety comes from trying to keep myself and everyone else around me healthy and safe. It's it's a weird one, but it makes sense in my head now. Anyway, so I know how you feel, and this is why I started making my Calm Charms. So what happened was last year, I left a job. It was a really toxic environment. It was meant to be the dream job, and we've all had them. It just doesn't turn out quite that way, does it? So I left, and with that, I had really bad anxiety with it. And I remembered a grounding technique that was taught to me by counsellors, by NHS therapists, by anyone that I've seen for my mental health previously, has talked about this technique, which was grounding. And it's brilliant. It's really good. I'll tell you in a minute why it actually works. But first off, I just wanted to actually tell you about anxiety and how it feels and why we feel the way that we feel when we're having anxiety attacks. So weirdly enough, in the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at Google and the results of what people have been searching. So for panic and anxiety, they've been searching, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What are the effects on the body? And overall, can it cause chest pain? Can it cause nausea? Can it cause stomach upset? Can it cause overall pain? Can it cause dizziness? And can it cause headaches? And part of the reason why I wanted to do the show today was to be able to have open conversations about things like this and make people realize that, yes, all of these things are perfectly normal for anxiety and panic attacks, because they are terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So as well as all of those things, like, the chest pain, the nausea, the stomach upset, the overall aches and pains, it can also give you like numbness and tingling. It gives you like shaking, so you can get like internal shakes. Almost feels like you're in an earthquake. It's weird, as well as like hands trembling. You can get hot flashes, you can get chills, you get sweats, you get dry mouth, you get a tight throat, you get shortness of breath, you can get palpitations. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It's really good to see that grounding helps me so much with my anxiety and meditation. It does. It's brilliant, and grounding is amazing. But the symptoms that happen, the reason that they happen is because your body is going into fight or flight mode. So you have all the endorphins, all the adrenaline, everything going because your brain is thinking that there is something huge that is attacking you. And obviously we all know out of, experience that 9 times out of 10 there isn't. But all of these chemicals are creating these physical reactions within your body because it thinks that it needs to get you to either up and leg it as quickly as you possibly can to escape said risk, or freeze, stay still, and pretend that everything's okay. So obviously, if you're being chased by a tiger or a lion, I know that doesn't really tend to happen on a daily basis, but just bear with me here. So if you're going to be running away from a tiger or a lion, your adrenaline is going to be pumping through to get all that energy that it possibly can into your muscles. So this is just an example. So the overall aches and pains can happen because you've got all of that energy going to your muscles, but it's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything. You're not running a million miles away from whatever's chasing you. You're just 9 times out of 10 sat somewhere or in, Tesco's or whatever, just doing your shopping, and all of a sudden you'll get this panic attack. So it can cause full aches and pains. It can cause a chest pain. It's because all your muscles are all tensing up, getting ready to run away. It can cause the nausea because, again, and an upset stomach, because when you are getting ready to run away from something, your body, our primary kind of reaction is to get rid of as much weight as we can. So as disgusting as it sounds, your body, you will feel nauseous, you will have an upset stomach because your body's trying to get rid of the weight, as it were, without meaning to be crude, so that you are lighter and you can run away quicker. You can get the tightness in the throat. Again, that's just your muscles constricting. You get the palpitations because your body is getting ready to be able to run. So there's so many different symptoms to it, and it's all because you've got all this adrenaline going around. All of this, frustratingly, comes from a tiny little part of your brain called the amygdala. It's at the top of your brainstem, right in the middle of your head. It's about the size of a walnut. It's tiny. They call it grey matter, which I call it many different things, and I tell you it's never called grey matter. But it's basically your fight or flight response. So what happens is when you're going through anxiety and panic, if your anxiety gets to a certain level and it causes a panic attack, your amygdala, this little walnut grey matter, is thinking that there is a lion or a tiger that's about to come and chase you, so you have to up and run. So the way to actually stop it from thinking that there is a lion or tiger that's trying to chase you, you have to trick it, basically, is the long and short of it. You just have to trick it. Good afternoon, Pamela. Thanks for joining. Feel free to share this link, by the way. It's very informative, I promise. So the most important thing to remember when you're going through a panic attack, as awful as it is to remember that it's not going to kill you. Anxiety and panic attacks, they cannot kill you. They can't. It feels like they can, and they are absolutely terrifying as they are happening, but they can't actually kill you. Long-term effects from it will have obviously like health impacts. So if you're constantly, like, your cortisol levels and everything are constantly high, then it will have an impact on your health, but it cannot kill you. That's the first thing to remember. The second is to start grounding, and I'd always recommend, this is why I started the Calm Charm, was because grounding for me was the only thing that worked every single time, and that is because it is clinically proven to work. As long as you put the effort in and do the work, it will work every single time. It will 110%, because it's physically impossible for your brain, the little grey amygdala nugget walnut thing, to carry on panicking and be grounded at the same time. It can't do it. It's physically impossible. So it will work. And it's the one thing that in my 10 years of having anxiety and panic attacks, it always works every single time. I'm not saying it will cure your anxiety, because that's not what it does. What's that, Lauren? Brown paper bags always handy. Yeah, I can never find a brown paper bag though, which is odd. Hi Sarah, nice to see you. Yeah, so grounding it does work every single time. You just have to practice. So basically, the way that grounding works is, it's, when I say grounding, I'm not talking about wiring plugs. I'm not talking about walking around barefoot, although apparently walking around barefoot does actually work quite well. What grounding does is it distracts your amygdala. It tricks your amygdala into thinking that you cannot be possibly chased. You can't possibly be chased by somebody at the same time as having this panic, the grounding. It just doesn't work. So what it does is it helps you pull away from like PTSD flashbacks. It pulls you away from unwanted memories. It pulls you away from negative emotions. All of those what ifs that we all get when we're anxious and having a panic attack. It's every single time it will stop those. Okay, so it's used in anxiety, it's used in panic attacks, it's used in PTSD as well. It's done in dissociation. It's done for self-harm urges. It's also done for substance abuse as well. It's any time that your brain is overwhelmed with its own thoughts, it will stop it, basically. There's loads of different ways that you can do grounding. I have one that I work, and that's what the Calm Charm is based off of, which I'll tell you in a minute. But in the meantime, you can do things like breathing into a paper bag. You can do like hot and cold water for your hands. So if you put your hands into hot water and then into cold, you can do it where you kind of concentrate just purely on your breathing. You can do it by going out for a walk and really concentrating on the stuff that's going on around you. You can hold ice. You can do like a body scan. For me, it's a healing elements, especially like mindfulness, bringing yourself into the present moment, stopping your mind from racing and wandering off. Leanne, that's exactly it. It is exactly it. It's just stopping your brain from thinking about any kind of panic or overwhelming thought and bringing yourself back into what is happening at the moment. Lauren, I agree with the grounding and spiritual healing. It was definitely one that helped me and made me look at life in a different light. And I learned that a lot of situations come from what yourself has allowed. It's very true. It really is. Part of my healing was being able to control, or not control, but know that I had control over my panic and anxiety attacks. So brilliant stuff. So you can do like the hot and cold ice, holding ice. You can do like a body scan, which for me doesn't really tend to work too well, but for you it might do. It's basically where you just pay attention to different parts of your body and the feelings and how it actually physically feels. You can do all that. You can do counting. So when I say counting, it's not counting sort of like 1 to 10. If you do think about the numbers between 1 and 10, then you have to do them out of order. You can do an affirming phrase, so like Pamela here. Now to control my panic attacks, taught myself to control by slowing down my breathing and in my head telling myself I'm okay. Brilliant. So that's, you know, like a really good affirming phrase. You can sit with your pet. I can't do that with ours because he's a cat and he's really grumpy. So sometimes when I want to sit with him, he doesn't necessarily want to sit with me, which is always a pleasure. And then you can obviously be very kind of compassionate to yourself as well. I find that over the years, there's some of those that have worked for me sometimes, and sometimes they haven't. I find that I get quite severe panic and anxiety, so I have to have something that isn't where I have to be very compassionate to myself, because I'm very hard on myself. And if it's something that doesn't take too much concentration, I get very easily distracted. So this is where the 5 4 3 2 1 technique comes into, which is the one that I will rant and rave about as much as I possibly can all the time. So you do 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Now, when I say that, you can't just go and say, right, okay, so for instance, this is a green cushion. I couldn't just go and say, right, okay, well, I can see a green cushion and I can see a pen and a piece of paper and a door and a window. You need to really get into the details of it. So, for instance, with this, I'd say, right, okay, it's more of a teal kind of colour. There's lots of different kind of textures to it. There's a couple of little threads on it where the cat's got his claws in, bless him. You know, the zip part on it is quite small. It's not a normal zip part. So you really do need to get into the details of it. By doing this, your brain is automatically tricked into thinking that everything is absolutely normal. It can't do the same things. You cannot run away from a tiger or a lion and sit and have a look at the side of a cushion and how it looks and what colour it is and everything else. Your brain physically cannot do it. By paying attention to the small details, you are tricking your amygdala into thinking that there is absolutely nothing to worry about. There's no threat, and everything's fine, and it's okay, and you can bring yourself down. I started using this technique years ago, and it works absolutely brilliantly every single time, without fail, as long as I pay attention to the details. But listening to my body for me was essential. It helped me recognise a trigger and the start of attack before it's got out of hand. That is absolutely perfect. That's a brilliant comment. And I've got something later on as well that will actually, it ties in with that completely. I totally agree. So yeah, it's all about really paying attention to the details and knowing that once you've done that, actually you're safe. So for instance, something that you can hear, if you went outside and you listen to the birds, you can't just say, right, okay, I can hear the birds. You want to try and go for how many different types of birds are there, how many different kind of tweets and whatnot can you hear. If you're doing something that you can taste, then what does it actually taste like? Lauren, I'm a high vibration and love staying with high vibrations. I always struggled to ground in the past, and now I just use a prayer. Brilliant. If that works for you, that is absolutely brilliant. It's all about connecting to what works for you. There might be loads of different things that you can do. So like like journaling. I used to do journaling, but for me, it kind of got to a point where I wasn't really getting much from it. The attention that I had to pay to be able to do it was really it was just too much effort. I needed something short, quick, something that I could do within 5-10 minutes and just get it done. And for me, journaling, it worked for a little while, but then not so much. So just do whatever works for you. That's great. So yeah, I started making the calm charms because, as great as the technique is, the 5 4 3 2 1, I'm sure we'll all be able to kind of recognize this in one level or another, but it was really, really painful and really hard. Who knows? You're amazing at live, so thanks. Wouldn't go that far, but thank you. when it came to trying to remember what I needed to do when I was mid panic, it was awful. It was so hard. I knew that it was all about the senses, and I'd end up kind of like stood trying to sniff 5 different things, which sometimes doesn't go down quite so well, obviously. You're trying to taste 4 different things, so you're grabbing like sweets and all kinds of stuff to just shove in your face, and it just didn't end well at all. Good afternoon, beautiful people found you. Oh, thanks. Thank you, Christine. So I started making, it actually started off with a trip to Hobbycraft with a friend of mine, where I got this little piece of wire and these odd looking beads that kind of like they sort of resembled vaguely kind of like eyes and ears, and it was awful. It still didn't work, but the premise was there, and I was kind of thinking, right, okay, well, I know that sort of works, but there's just a couple that weren't quite right. So I started making actual calm charms, which I obviously now sell. So I got things like owls for something to see, so to represent sight, because obviously owls have the big eyes. Then like hands and paw prints and things like that for something to feel. And then something to hear. I got like musical instruments, musical notes, birds, little charms that I just popped together on like this metal ring. And each time that I was going through a panic attack, I was working my way through each one of the charms, and I found that it was so much better in so many different ways, because I wasn't worried so much about trying to remember which ones I needed to do, which was great, because when you're getting more frustrated because you can't remember what you need to do, it puts you in a worse position. It doesn't end well at all. You end up more stressed out, I think, than you were in the first place. So I started working my way through the charms, and every single time it just worked brilliantly. And the more I got into it and the more I used them, the quicker I could address the anxious feelings and the panic. So I still have anxiety, but I can't remember the last time that I had a full blown panic. In fact, actually, that's a lie. Yes, I can. And it was because I did a video to show how the calm charm works. So I just let myself go into panic, which was terrifying. But I thought, if there's any way that I can show people how it works, is to have a panic attack and go through the steps. But now I find, and I hope that if anyone takes anything from this, is that if you spend as much time worrying about having a panic attack as you did having the actual panic attack or anxiety attack, it'd be a lot quicker. I kind of find myself worrying, or I used to find myself worrying for most part of the day. If I knew I was going somewhere, I'd be worried about having a panic attack when I got there. When I first moved up to the north of England, my husband took me to Manchester, and I'm a little country girl. I'm used to living near trees and the seaside and whatnot. And I remember we were going in to see his friend for his birthday, and I was really anxious about going in there. I was thinking, this is big city. I don't know how I'm going to be able to cope with it. We'll just go, and I'll just hope it's fine. We got there, and we parked up in, I think it was Victoria train station car park. Got into the station, and I was so overwhelmed by the size of this station. I just completely went into full meltdown. I just sat on the floor. My husband had to have his arms around me and just hold me. I was shaking. I was feeling sick. It was all the symptoms that I mentioned earlier on. Everything just hit me at once, and we ended up having to go. But half the problem was because I'd spent all of the morning worrying about having this attack. So when I got there, it's no wonder that I did, because I'd already spent half the morning worrying about it anyway. But actually, if I'd known at that time that grounding was so unbelievably effective, actually, my train of thought would have been much more along the lines of, well, if I go and I have a panic attack, I know I can stop it. I know I can stop it straight. So actually, there's no need to worry at all. And this is the thing that I found: the more that I've gone on and done the grounding, the easier it's got to be able to deal with the panic attacks, because I know now that actually all I've got to do is just start the grounding before I even get to the stage of having a panic attack. This is what you were saying earlier on. Is that early intervention of thinking, right, okay, I know I'm anxious about this. I know that I'm going to be feeling panicky. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my grounding now, bring myself back, stop the what if thoughts, and then just keep on doing it until I'm comfortable and I'm happy with it. And that's the things that I can say would probably be the best bet is to practice it. Practice time and time again, even when you're not feeling anxious. The more you do it when you're actually in an anxiety and panic attack, the easier it will be to go through the motions and go through the steps and get yourself grounded again. So practice it and stick with it. If it doesn't work the first time, next time, try it again. Don't give up straight away. Just try it again and really go into those details. Really look at the details of your cushion. Rate yourself before and after. So this is something that I started doing because when you're in a state of anxiety and panic, it's really hard sometimes to realize that actually you're doing really well. You are doing really well, actually. You're doing well to get through the day anyway, but also to be able to sit and know that you are trying to get yourself out of it and do the grounding. Rate it and pay attention to the fact that you've gone down in numbers. So when I start my panic attacks, normally I rate myself at about a 7 or an 8 at the minute. It used to be sort of like, 10 plus 100. Whereas, once I've done the grounding, even if I have to go through the motions a couple of times, normally when I come out of it, I'm round about 3 or 4, something like that. I can function. Which means to me that the panic attack has subsided and now I'm just dealing with the anxiety side of it. So give yourself a rating. Don't give up on it. Keep going, keep persisting with it and practice it. And keep your eyes open. I know it sounds like an odd one, but it's really hard to be able to bring yourself back into the present moment with your eyes closed. If you're sat there with your eyes closed, you can imagine all sorts of things coming in at you and your brain will easily wander off again. So keep your eyes open. If you wake up in the middle of the night, mid panic attack, keep your eyes open. I know, a lot of people have their bedrooms like blacked out, which is great. It's really good for inducing like solid sleep, but keep your eyes open anyway, because there might be sort of like your eyes will adjust, there'll be slight glimmers of light, and again it will just help you realize that you're safe and you're in the present moment. You're not in your previous memories, you're not in your intrusive thoughts, you're not in any of that. You are in the present moment. So yeah, that's kind of it really. Before we go to any questions, I just wanted to finish off with where we're at the minute. Obviously, I said earlier on that it's normally sort of 1 in 5 people, 1 in 4 people even, went well, 1 in 4 people that have anxiety. But if you think at the moment about where we are in the world with this pandemic, which is terrifying, I try not to talk about it too much because I know it can trigger quite a lot of people, myself included. There's a lot of uncertainty, and with that comes there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basically. Really clever dude, that's really inappropriate, really clever guy, really clever guy who created this theory about levels of safety and things that we need to be able to move up within our lives. So on the very bottom base level here, you had food, warmth, water, rest, things like that. So really basic human needs. Up above that was things like safety and security. So, when you think about like the roof over your head and that feeling of security there. Then you have relationships and friends. So, your other halves, partners, and all your friendship circles. Then you have like accomplishments, which is obviously things like work, feeling like you've accomplished something for the day. So, like bringing in money or following your life's passion or things like that. And then you have self-enlightenment at the top, which is things like being able to be creative with what you do and achieving your full potential, which fair play if you get there. I'm definitely nowhere near there yet. But if you think about that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the moment, I'd say a good 80 to 90% of the country has had one of those levels thrown out. Now, if you think of it like a Jenga game, but a really unstable one, if you take out things like accomplishment, so if you look at like people that have sadly lost their jobs and things like that, if you take out accomplishment, that means that achieving the full potential, things like that, they're out the window. If you think that with that, if they lose their job, they'll be worried about relationships, safety, the roof over the house, roof over the head, which means that they're then worrying about food, water, warmth, and rest. That means that all of the levels in that basic human needs is completely thrown. You've got uncertainty there, so you're wobbling around all over the place. So I think at the moment, the one thing that I kind of take a lot from social media as well is just remember that kindness spreads. It's what holds the community together. And what keeps us thriving really is, I know there's a lot of stress and I know there's a lot of worry and tension, but just remember that everyone's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, everyone's Jenga tower is on a wobble at the moment if they haven't definitely had bits taken out. Right, so questions. Leanne, when did you start using the grounding technique and how did you come up with the calm charm idea? So I started using the technique, I'd say probably 8 years ago. I'd been in therapy for a couple of years trying to deal with my brother passing away, and it got recommended to me because I was really struggling with getting out and about, and just general like panic attacks themselves. They were just absolutely crippling. It was really bad at one point, really bad. And the therapist that I went to speak to, she was a psychotherapist, I think her official title was, although apparently I found out now that there's no difference between a psychotherapist and a counsellor. I don't know if that's true. Somebody just mentioned it the other day, but yeah, she mentioned to me about grounding, and we went through all the different types of grounding. And it was, for me, because I said earlier on I was really self-critical, things like positive affirmations, things like that, it just didn't work. I didn't have the headspace to be able to sit and meditate. It just, I really struggled with anything. So it was a really simple idea that she told me about, was just the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I started doing it, and lo and behold, it really started working. It was just, like I said before, I kept on forgetting. So yeah, then I came up with the calm charm idea back end of last year. So November, December, I think, was the memorable trip to Hobbycraft, which was a very funny day actually. But yeah, I just came up with the idea of thinking, right, okay, well actually, if I had something in my hand, I was looking around for like anxiety bracelets, things like that, just anything that would remind me of these steps. And there was kind of similar ones. There were ones that did it on like colours, but I still couldn't remember what red was meant to be for. I didn't know what the green was meant to be for. So I was just right back at square one. And that's when I came up with, right, okay, well, I need something that looks like an eye. And I really struggled at the time to find an eye charm that didn't look really quite scary. So yeah, I stuck with owls, which was great. And then obviously found the hands and just went on from there really. And then next thing I know, I was making, so I make like the original calm charms, which are like designed to be held in your hand. So they have a charm for every single step. So it's got five owls on it, 4 hands on it. Like I normally try to put like a musical instrument, a bird, and then a musical note on for the hearing. And then I do flowers, where I do like scented flowers as well. So I put like a nice calming smell on them. So if you don't really want to go around kind of sniffing other people, which obviously we can't do at the minute anyway, not that I'd recommend it, but you know, if you want something that you can smell that's instantly in your hands, then it's got like a little scent on it, and then like a little food item. So I've got things like ice creams and apples and grapes and things like that. So that's got one for every single one of the steps. Can we see one of your charms? I've not got one up here with me. They're all downstairs, which have made me running off, which I didn't really think through. But if you go to the my Facebook page, you can, or in Instagram or Twitter, any of them, you can see the pictures on there. The video of me having a panic attack is also on YouTube as well. So it's again at the Calm Charm. If you just search the Calm Charm on any kind of channel, I tend to pop up in the corner. But I started selling like things like key rings, so it was just a lot easier for people to use because they're a lot smaller. So you can attach it to bags, things like that. Then I started doing bracelets because I thought, right, okay, well, for some people that might not want something that's in their hand and they just need a subtle reminder every now and then, there's a little bracelet there. So yeah, there's loads of different options, and I've always got new stuff in line, which I can't tell you. I know it's really exciting, but I can't tell you what they are. So yeah, that's how I came up with the Calm Charms, and I'm really sorry, but I haven't got one up here as an example. But yeah, so there we go. If there's any other questions, feel free to chuck them up on screen now. I'm going to have a quick slurp of tea. Don't mind me. Sorry. Started having anxiety attacks when I was 16 years old and I was medicated. The hardest part was that I became addicted to the medication. I got to a point where I believed I was having an attack. Lauren, that's really sadly a really common thing. When I was younger, I was put on diazepam, or as it used to be called, Valium, and the same happened to me. It didn't end. It obviously ended well because I've come out the other side of it now, but I get what you mean, and it's really hard and awful. I can't think of any other way to describe it because it gives me a kind of like a overwhelming feeling of my throat being grabbed when I think about it. So I know exactly what you mean. What I will say is don't give up hope. Just don't. I used to be exactly the same, and somehow I've managed to bring it out the other side so that I can actually now start helping other people. Just keep talking about it. If you feel like you're relapsing, or when I say relapsing, going back into having anxiety and panic attacks again, don't give yourself a hard time for it. It is perfectly normal. It does happen an awful lot. I go through periods where I have maybe like a year or two, something like that, that's actually all right. It's not too bad. I can manage it. And then all of a sudden something will happen. It might even be just something small, but it'll be kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I'll find that I'll start to struggle again. Don't hide away from it. Just keep going and reach out for help. Start using grounding techniques. Use whatever kind of mindfulness techniques have worked for you. Don't forget self-care. And self-care can be anything. It doesn't have to be going off for a massage or a facial and pedicure and all that kind of stuff. It can literally just be having 10 minutes sat in a room. Like I come up into this room every now and then and just sit with a couple of candles and just sit and chill out. I quite like, there's a lady called Sarah Blondin who does like guided meditations, but they don't feel like meditations. They're really good. So I just kind of sit and listen to her. There's also another lady called the Pure Wild Witch who actually lives just down the road from me. She does guided meditations. I speak to, oddly enough, a lot of friends. So Leanne, who's commented a couple of times, I speak to her a lot as well. She does guided meditation. She does Reiki. It's just pick up whatever tools you need to do. But if you get to a point where you feel like your anxiety and your panic is having an effect on your daily life, please, whatever you do, make sure you speak to a GP. One of the saddest things that I think this has brought about for me is seeing what people Google. Will anxiety kill me? It just absolutely breaks my heart to think that there's people that have stood there, and that's quite a well Googled term at the minute, is people are sat there, and it's worse at the moment because obviously you know what anxiety attacks feel like, Lauren, the same as I do. But for someone who's new to it, if they feel like they can't talk about it and they're sitting there and they're asking Google for help, which anyone who's got anxiety and panic knows that that's probably one of the worst things that you can do. We can't help it sometimes. We do. I went through a stage where I'd take my temperature about 5 or 6 times a day. I then went through a stage where I checked my heart rate 5 or 6 times a day, at least. And, you know, I checked like my oxygen levels, I checked my blood pressure. I do all of these different checks just to try to make myself feel safe, where actually all I need to do is realise that it's just an intrusive thought. It doesn't have any meaning to it. It's just a thought. And actually, if I bring myself back to the present moment, I'll realise that I don't need to check it and I'm fine. It's just my body going into overdrive. So thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing. I really do appreciate that. It's good to see people that are willing to share and say, do you know what, this was hard, but don't give up hope. You will come out the other side if you haven't already. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. You might not see it yet, but there definitely is, 100%. So yeah, any other questions at all? Anyone? I'm going to take another slurp of tea, don't mind me. I'm not entirely sure what else I can let you know about at the minute. Hi everyone, I'm thankful for finding you on here. Unbelievable Facebook. I blocked you, Richard. Oh yeah, Richard's having a really tough time with Facebook at the minute. He's not having the best time. I can't hear him either, which is really bad. He's just buzzing in my ear, so I can't tell you if he's responded or not, but I know that he's really not happy about Facebook blocking him. But, you know, we still have YouTube, so that's great. That's great. One thing I haven't told you. So I've seen a couple of customers. I'm just going to share a couple of little stories with you just while you think of little questions to ask. But I'm going to share a couple of little stories with you. So there's one of my customers who is in the neighbouring town, and if people are quite close, I'll go and hand deliver them, just because I like to do the, you know, personal touch and just say hello to people every now and then, especially at the minute. He likes to disappear on us all. That's good. At least it's not just me, Leanne. That's good. So yeah, I went and delivered. Wendy, thank you for today, Lisa and Richard. Oh, thank you very much, Wendy. Apologies if I came off nervous. It's my first one, so yeah, sorry about that. Although it's not really, because I do them on Facebook all the time. Anyway, yeah, so I popped to the local town and just delivered this little bracelet, and it was for a woman and her daughter, and her daughter's got some additional health requirements, and it was absolutely lovely. I think it was the first time that my husband's actually seen one get delivered, because he came along with me. I'd hurt my knee that day, so I couldn't drive, so I just dragged him along, and we got to the door, and it was just so lovely. It was really, really nice. I opened the door, passed it over, and she said, "Oh, do you want to meet my daughter?" So I was like, "Yeah, let's have a quick hello, you know, socially distance hello and whatnot." So I stood back and just gave her a little wave, and she had the best smile on her face ever. And the lady said that she uses it at school and that it's helped her like no end. It's the improvement, and what she's been able to do ever since has just been fab. And I also had another person that contacted me about her son, who she bought one for. It was a key ring, and he had ADHD as well as a couple of other health issues as well. And he calls it his thingy, which is great. I find that hilarious. But again, it's just these little things is to remember that it's not just, I know I obviously advertise it for anxiety and panic, but that's because that's actually proven to work. But there's evidence coming through now that it does work for things like ADHD, like the substance abuse, like I said earlier on, for any self-harm thoughts. It works for any time that you feel like you are disassociated with what you're doing, and you just need to come back to the present moment. I spoke to a lady again. I dropped another one off last week, I think it was. Dropped it off, knocked on her door and everything, and just passed it over. And she turned around and she said, "You've made an absolute massive difference to my life. Thank you so much." And then she actually, which was the best bit. She closed the door as she went to close the door. This really got me. She said, "May the force be with you," which was great because my brother, he passed away 2010. He was an avid Star Wars fan, absolutely avid Star Wars fan. We've got a lightsaber and everything that was his, that's like a genuine one and all sorts. And it was, you know, when you just get that brief moment where you think, yeah, I'm on the right path with this. She's just come out with a Star Wars quote. But yeah, it's grounding really does help. I've had a lady call me up and say that she's now able to sleep properly, which we all know if you can't sleep, then that exacerbates the anxiety as well. So, Leanne, do you have calm charms for men and women? Yes, I do. So, I've recently added to the collection. So a lot of them were around, obviously, you know, kind of jangly key rings and whatnot. It was all very kind of feminine, as it were. But yes, I do have ones for men as well now, which are fab. So I've got men's like leather bound bracelets. There's 2 different styles of those at the moment. I've got wooden key rings that have got the, instead of like an owl and thing, it's literally just got like an eye, it's got a hand, it's got an ear, a nose, and then a mouth, and it's burned into the wood. It's definitely my favourite. I absolutely love it. It's done like a bookmark kind of shape with like a leather strap that goes around the actual keyring itself. They're fab. And then I've also got another keyring that's I've done aimed at men, which is kind of like dog tag kind of shape. Again, with the 5 different symbols just engraved on it. So it's nice and simple. Excuse me, slight hiccup there. Ooh. That's not good, is it? So yeah, it's like engraved, so it's literally just a symbol, so it's not all jangly, it's not gonna kind of, you know, make too much noise. It's much more manly, which is great. Do you find that women buy them more than men? At the moment, yes, but I think that's a lot because I'm doing a lot of work moving forwards around trying to get it open up to men, because I know it's the whole stoicism thing, which I get gender stereotypes. I hate them. But I understand where they come from. And it's just how I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm starting to find out how I can break down that stereotype to say, do you know what? If you're a man and you have anxiety, that is absolutely fine. It's fine. It's the same as thinking, you know, there's been a lot of posts around recently saying that, you know, going to a therapist would be no different to going to the doctors if you've got flu. And I'm very much a great believer in that. I think that, you know, if you go to a therapist, it's not because you're weak, it's because you want to be able to improve. So it's what I'm trying to do now is get to that point where I can break down that stereotype and reach more men. If anyone has any ideas, feel free to chuck them at me, because it's the one area I know that once I speak to women about this, I can turn around to them and say, right, you know, here's a calm charm, this is what it does, it's going to be great. But with a man, it's just so much harder to be able to get them to open up. There's some guys that are absolutely brilliant and they will talk to me to the end of the world, which is fab. I'm really all for that. And there are quite a few men that do buy them, but it's not enough. As far as I'm concerned, it's just not enough. It shouldn't be getting to the point where the male suicide rates in this country are that high because they don't want to talk and don't want to speak about it. So the more I can do about breaking down those stigmas and those barriers, the better. So yeah, that's something that I'm really working on at the minute. Wendy, my granddaughter was told to use elastic bands on her wrist, which myself and my daughter found very upsetting. If my daughter told her off for anything, she would ping them in front of her daughter. Yeah, elastic bands. I personally, my personal view on that one is that it's quite an outdated kind of view on it. I get it for things like self-harm because it gives a kind of level of pain to it. But for things like, you know, if my daughter was told off for anything, it's for things like if you're suffering with anxiety, I don't think, to be honest with you, an elastic band on the wrist is a healthy way to do it. I don't know who it was that told you how to do that, and I'm so sorry if I offend them by saying that I don't think it's a healthy way, but there's so many easier ways to do it than to ping an elastic band on your wrist. I kind of have a hairband on my wrist a lot of the time because my hair's always up, but I always have a spare just in case it goes a little bit, looks a bit feral otherwise. But if I'm pinging an elastic band on my wrist, I find it just gives me a really short thing of pain, and then I just get really annoyed by it, and then I go back to being pain because it's not a comfortable feeling. It's not a nice feeling to have an elastic band pinged on your wrist, which is why this is why I really like the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding, because you're not, you can stick your hands in hot and cold water, which is great, but it's still, if you're putting your hands into a cold water, it's still not very comfortable. Whereas if I'm just feeling like the texture of a chair, for example, there's nothing particularly nasty about that. It's just looking at using your senses. It was a school that told her to do this. I'm really sorry to her school, but I just don't. That's not something that I would ever say was a great idea, especially for a child that's dealing with anxiety or panic attack, something like that. There's much more self-friendly, is that even a thing? I don't know, but there's a lot more friendlier ways of doing it that aren't going to cause that kind of discomfort, but still bring you back to the present moment, because that's all grounding is it's just about bringing yourself back to the present moment. And that's what they'll be trying to do, is by teaching her to ping it, it gives an immediate feeling of something that's happening right now. There's plenty of ways that you can do that. You could say, right, okay, tell me the details of your watch. Well, it's got a blue strap on it, it's got a little, it's not got the typical fastening to it, it's a Fitbit, so it's got like little knobbles on it and stuff. There's plenty of other ways that it can be done without pinging an elastic band. One of my intentions is to start working with like schools and things like that, because I used to work for a group of schools previously, which was fab. It was an absolutely great job, but again, it's just more about mental health now. You've got the mental health first aider training, and I think that can even be improved on. So I'm intending on getting in everyone's way and just sticking my nose into everything and just trying to help everyone, which I know might be really unrealistic, but I don't care. I'm going to try and do it anyway. An elastic band on a wrist to try and get her to ground. That's really sad. I'm really sorry to hear about that, Wendy. So yeah, there we go. Right, is there any other questions? I don't know what time we're on either. Oh, 2:29. Oh gosh, hello, Richard's back. Apparently I was doing so well that he was made redundant, so I didn't need him anyway. But yes, Richard is back, and I'm sure he'll respond to the Facebook comment. Wendy, myself and my daughter are trying to get her help, bless her. Okay, well, Wendy, if there's ever anything that I can do to help, any advice that I can give, just give me a message. Like I said, I'm on social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Just give me a shout. Angelina, some NLP practitioners, CBT therapies use elastic bands to assist in reprogramming automatic thoughts. Yes. So, yeah, I can understand it for reprogramming the automatic thoughts. But for just plain grounding, I just think that's a really harsh way to do it. That's just my thoughts on it, though. Anyway, but yeah, thank you, Angelina. I really appreciate that. It's good. Okay, here we go. Any other questions? Oh, a few comments. Okay. I thought of Leanne because dog tags and key fobs are masculine objects, and dog tags for PSD and or forces might relate better. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of with the dog tag kind of shaped key fobs. That was my plan, so it's good that that's come across well. That's good. Thank you. Good afternoon, Daniela. I hope you're well. Wendy, thank you so much, Lisa. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for sticking around, Wendy. I really do appreciate you watching as well. Like I said, any help I can give, just give me a shout, and I'll always help where I can. Okay. Okay, so so some of the stuff we've got tonight from 8 o'clock is it Philly and Norma show? Oh, Jilly, sorry, I've got a picture over the top of it. Sorry, Jilly and Norma, which is psychic artistic work with colour and I can't see the edge of that. Say again, sorry. Oh, feathers with colour and feathers. Oh, that sounds fab. So there you go. So that's from tonight at 8 o'clock, and then 10:30 tonight is Ricky and Tyler. So it's from Divine Spark with new fortnightly show offering free readings as well. Brilliant. Mediumship and tarot as well. So that's great. So that's 10:30 tonight with Ricky and Tyler. Yes, that's all on YouTube. Don't forget. It's not on Facebook because Facebook doesn't like Richard. Brilliant. Christine, thank you so much, Lisa. Much appreciate it. We'll have a look at these charms. Oh, thank you ever so much, Christine. If you get any questions again, just give me a shout. Thank you. Has he not been talking to you? No, he hasn't, Jan. He's been very rude. I'm joking. He has just said that he normally talks a lot, but yeah, apparently I do enough talking for everyone, so it's fine. Really informative and great to hear of your experiences, Lisa. Very inspirational to see you channeling your challenges into ways that help others. Well, Angelina, the way that I see it is that, you know, if I can't use it to help other people, then what's the point? So I might just as well use my experience to help as many people as I can. And now I've got to the point where I just want to help everyone. So yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Been amazing, Lisa. Thank you very much, Leanne. Thank you. Again, you can follow me on Facebook. It's at the Calm Charm. Just have a look. I do regular videos and show the items that I send out on a daily basis. And I will be starting to do like hints and tips on how to deal with different aspects of it. And also little snippets of my story as well. So just to help others that haven't been able to tune in today. Yeah, I was just put, is he talking about me? I talk for Brit and he doesn't usually get a word in. He's not actually. He's been very, very polite about you, Leanne. Don't worry. Now he is. But yeah, you can get me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I am on YouTube. So just have a look at the Calm Charm and you'll find me. Thank you very much, Wendy. Brilliant. Okay, apparently I can do whatever I want to do in the next 15 seconds. I won't because that was, yeah. But thank you ever so much, everyone, for tuning in, for listening and for watching. It's been absolutely brilliant and hope to see you soon. Thank you ever so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.